This one's kind of stumping me. I'm having a hard time making an easy definition for this, and I could really use your help. Well, hello. This episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by you. Yes, people like you, all of the amazing folks sharing content on social media, and the generosity of my patrons at patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. More info on those awesome nerds later in the video. Is the game Balatro gambling? I'm inclined to say no, but we need more than just my gut feeling. A game built on poker hands, how is that not gambling? I struggle with this in a lot of my commentary because I think too often people overlook the gambling mechanics in video games because there's no monetary reward. It's like a digital no true Scotsman argument. Real gambling is when you can win money, not when you get new players for a football video game. And I don't believe that really matters. I don't believe the prize is what defines whether or not something is a predatory gambling mechanic. Quick tangent. Years ago, I produced an interview for Pocket Now with a specialist on addiction, and I wanted to sit down and talk about phone addiction, and I thought it was a really insightful conversation, that maybe phone addiction really isn't a thing. Some folks might feel like we're splitting hairs here, but maybe we're not really addicted to the phone, but the phone enables you access to a sports betting app that's really got you hooked. I am absolutely not an expert. I am not a doctor, but it's a topic I've watched closely since producing that interview. While many consider the opportunity to win actual money the dividing line between gambling and not gambling, I don't think the money is the hook. The chance, the risk, the anticipation, even the feelings after a bad loss. Those are the emotional highs and lows, the radical swings in brain chemistry that get people hooked on certain activities. The prize could be money, but those kinds of individuals would likely still gamble even if the prize wasn't money. If the prize was cotton candy, or the prize could be a new armor for your Iron Man in a mobile video game. I don't think the brain cares what the prize might be. The activity and emotional turmoil leading up to the win or loss, and that release of tension is the activity. To me, that's gambling. So when I talk to peers and parents, I try to sum that up in a short breakdown, and I know for a fact that I have not boiled this down to an easy phrase, something understandable, but I'm still trying because I think it's really important we have an easy way to describe this. The best I've gotten so far: games that block player progression using random number or slot machine style events are trying to hook the player with predatory gambling style mechanics. See? It just rolls right off the tongue. So easy to understand. But even then, I struggle with that as a definition. We could take combat in a role-playing game. Isn't that often a random number roll of the dice? If you don't win that encounter, doesn't that block player progression? Or back to Balatro, you have 52 cards in your deck. And isn't it random which card you will draw to make your poker hand? And isn't poker played in a casino where gambling happens? Checkmate, liberal! And technically, yes, that's why this is so hard. But that doesn't halt the player the same way that we might look at other games that employ more insidious mechanics. And if parents don't have a history of playing these kinds of games, then it's almost impossible to explain the nuance. If we go that broad with my definition, then all board games would be considered gambling. Candyland would be considered gambling, and that's an absurd position to take. So it's not a hard and fast line in the sand, it's gotta be a spectrum of experiences, and we understand how far down that spectrum we might be traveling. I think a little uncertainty in a game is fun. Little doses of risk are exciting, and they can be educational. I think a lot of us probably had that cool teacher who tried to show concepts like probability using dice and card games. In a role-playing game, we roll dice to introduce a taste of the unexpected. A little hint of realism in a game about trolls and wizards with pieces of paper and all of these specs listed. The most powerful player in the scenario could just be having a bad day fighting that orc, and her sword swing just, it just wasn't as effective as it could have been. But the overall experience of that role-playing game wasn't blocked by that one bad roll. The game is a social event with a storyteller and a group of players and a wide array of other mechanics and systems, and that one combat event is a tiny piece of the greater whole. Plus, you always know what your odds are going to be, and those odds can't change on the fly. The flip side of a dice roll for combat would be the loot box or a slot machine system in games that require a ton of resource management. I'm really bad at simplifying this. Fancy words to say games with lots of menus and stuff the player needs to keep in inventory. My favorite example, I like to use Marvel Future Fight because I personally got pretty deep into that game. On the surface, it's a cute little action title with characters you know. At the beginning, you start with a trio of Avengers, and you run down these short little missions and fight enemies to build material for upgrades and to unlock new characters to play. It's super cute. Now, it's free to play, so a lot of people are at least familiar with that. Those annoying aspects like crystals you use per mission, and when you run out, you can't play until those crystals replenish slowly, or you can buy a crystal pack to jump back into the action faster. That's called a cooldown clock. You can also get gold and materials for completing missions and defeating enemies, which can be used to upgrade a single character's equipment and abilities. And then you can find character bios that are needed to unlock new characters and upgrade the characters you already have. If you have Captain America, you still need to find Captain America bios because you want Cap to keep getting stronger. That first third of the game is straightforward action, and the game is really generous with the first wave of characters to unlock. It feels good building up your roster and then going back in to play other missions and beat other mini bosses. As you progress through the game, though, the missions you started with get a lot less fun. New game modes are introduced that are more fun, and you can have your characters battle another player's team, or you can eventually build up. You can work up to joining a guild with other people, battle other guilds, and go on raid-style quests for even bigger rewards. But to compete at that level, you need to have a full roster of powerful characters. And if you start working towards that, the game takes a hard turn away from fun gameplay and action, and it swings wildly into resource management and gambling mechanics. The missions you ran as a newbie become the way you farm materials for future upgrades. We call this the grind. Getting a single character ranked higher can take weeks of grinding to build up the materials you need. But when you're ready to upgrade that character, it's not a set price. You take a chunk of the material you acquired and you throw it into a slot machine and you spin for it. You get a random chance at upgrading a part of that character, and it builds on this little progress bar with each spin. Take material, throw it away, spin it. Oh, you only got 5% there. Take some more material, spin again. Oh, this time you got 20%. Didn't that feel good? More material, spin again. Oh, only 10% this time. Keep spinning. After a couple runs of this, oh no, you ran out of materials at 85% of the progress that you wanted to make. Well, you could go back and grind for a few more days, or maybe you just want to buy this upgrade pack and you can get a few more spins. And when you get later into the game, every part of a character is upgradable through some kind of system like this. The character and their main stats, their health and their armor and their attacks, they all need to be upgraded separately. Each power-up needs to be upgraded separately. You can acquire different uniforms, which grant different abilities. Those uniforms need to be upgraded separately. You can add different cosmic gems to improve your stats, and those gems need to be upgraded separately. The materials you use to upgrade the character, those materials also need to be upgraded separately. It's not enough to just acquire magical antimatter. You need to take your antimatter and fuse it to upgrade your antimatter so you have more potent antimatter. System on top of system on top of system on top of resource on top of resource on top of resource. And there is no regulation on video games like we have for casinos and real slot machines. A real slot machine in a casino cannot change the payout on the fly. We think we're really complex as evolved primates, but the math on this actually isn't that hard. People have gotten pretty good at coming up with algorithms that can alter the payout to keep a player hooked on a single mechanic. You know, just feed them, give them just enough to keep spinning. Casinos aren't allowed to do that. They aren't allowed to change a slot machine on the fly per player. Marvel Future Fight can see when you're starting to cool off on the game, and then maybe they feed you a few easy wins to get you excited again, get those dopamine hits going, and get you back into the hardcore gambling. Everything I've described, that sounds like a lot of work, right? A lot of work to build up one character and make them powerful for the later parts of the game. That sounds like a whole game all by itself, just taking one character, building them up, and then you face a final boss at the end. That's not how Future Fight works. There is no one final boss that your Captain America needs to show down, because that's the kicker. There are over 270 playable characters in Future Fight that all need to be ranked up in similar ways. To be fair, you don't need all of them to have fun in the later stages of the game, but you do need a healthy roster of powerful characters to really get into that end game play. If you're starting fresh, that's months and months and months of grinding, or spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to shortcut, or most likely, if you want that big roster, probably both. Months of grinding and spending a lot of money. Literally, they have all these little packs that you can buy. Spending $100 on a single character in Future Fight will not max them out, and it won't go very far towards maxing them out. Times 270 playable characters. There are these bright, vibrant little moments of fun gameplay, but the vast majority of time is spent engaging with resource management and gambling mechanics. And then once you realize it, you've spent so much time learning these obtuse systems, and you've had some fun playing in your guild, it's hard to pull away. It's hard to leave because of that sunk cost fallacy. The game has its hooks in you. Now, if you've never played Future Fight, I'm sure this is exhausting to hear everything just dumped in your lap, and I'm barely scratching the surface on how complicated everything is. But I guarantee you, it works on people vulnerable to these kinds of systems. It worked on me pretty great. I spent a lot of money and a huge amount of time on this little mobile game. I guarantee you, kids will eat up all of this complexity, and they'll dig deep on these systems in ways you'll never see them focus on their schoolwork. And there are certainly whales in this game who blow thousands of dollars a month, just like there are whales in actual casinos. And this is one game in the App Store. If it's not Marvel Future Fight, there are tons of other games that employ similar tactics. Exhaust the parents with complicated systems, get the kids trained to work and work and work, and then spend and spend and spend. Sit back and profit. We might have gotten rid of the literal loot box in games where you pay $5 actual to open a digital box and see what's inside, but the systems we replaced that simple exchange with are far more insidious. They're way harder for non-gamers to understand. Our politicians and regulators certainly don't understand this market. And now even YouTube is targeting games like Balatro and ignoring the score of other games that are far worse for vulnerable folks. Back to Balatro, I mean, it stands in stark contrast to free-to-play games like Future Fight. Balatro is a kind of battle where you build an attack based on a poker hand, and you need to score enough points to defeat an opponent called the blind. It's cute. It's based on poker terminology. And then you can acquire some jokers to augment your poker hand scores. Every blind you defeat drops some cash that you can use to upgrade your cards for the next round or buy another joker. Then you fight another blind, and each blind gets progressively more difficult, and you see how far you can go. And that's it. That's the whole game. It's a strategy game that uses poker hands instead of dice rolls like a role-playing game. And it is a skill game. You can get really good at it and face off against ridiculously powerful blinds based on your strategy. You can unlock new decks with different abilities, and there are more challenging modes, but eventually you face off against a blind you cannot beat, and then you start all over again. There are no resources to manage. There is nothing blocking player progress. All of the decks are accessible through normal gameplay. There are no weird systems or currencies to learn or manage. At the time this video was shot, you buy the game once, and then there are no other purchases you can make. Even customizing your cards with different artwork, those are all free. It's charming. It's a charmingly straightforward strategy game, and it looks like gambling because poker, but landing a full house is more like getting a great roll in an RPG and landing a critical hit. That one strike isn't as important as your overall strategy in trying to beat the next blind. Plus, the game can't really mess with your odds because it's a deck of cards. You really need a 10 of hearts, and you only have 40 cards left in your deck, you know exactly what your odds are. And that's where all of this gets a little messy, right? It's the presentation. It's so simple on the surface. You see a game built around poker terminology, and there is still a random aspect to the game. And isn't that the same as sitting at a table in a casino? And if you don't play the game or games like it, it's hard to explain that it's really more about strategy and combat. It's just using the cards as a metaphor. A game like Future Fight uses the look of an action combat game to hide gambling systems designed to target people vulnerable to gambling mechanics and to extract as much money out of impatient players as they can. So yes, both are technically random number playstyles, but one is significantly more predatory and destructive than the other. It's a spectrum of experiences when it comes to random elements in gameplay. There is no line in the sand that I can draw that clearly predicts when a game goes from fun to predatory. It's kind of like judges and courts ruling on obscenity. I can't define it in a way that is 100% accurate on a piece of paper and properly categorizes every single game that's ever been made, but I know it when I see it. As a parent, I draw very specific lines on the kinds of experiences I like to share with my kid. In our household, I'm not afraid to play games with my daughter like Yahtzee or Farkle, Uno, Crazy Eights, Kings in the Corner, games with some random and unexpected elements. So I'm not really gonna be concerned much if my daughter takes a liking to a game like Balatro. I'm kind of expecting it because she's pretty good at games like Yahtzee and Shut the Box. I don't know, is Yahtzee gambling? You can make a full house and a straight and a four of a kind. It's rolling dice, but no, I don't think Yahtzee is gambling. But I'm gonna be really concerned when games like Future Fight start catching her eye. As I wrap up this video, and this is definitely taken longer than I would expect it to as I'm kind of rambling through some of this, as techies and gamers, I feel we're letting down parents and kids. We have game ratings, but that's only for content like language or gore. I believe ratings should also include monetization. How a game is monetized should also contribute to that conversation. What audience is appropriate for that game? See, it's not that I think a game like Future Fight shouldn't exist. I mean, I think it's fine. It's great if a whale wants to blow thousands of dollars a month on little Marvel avatars on their phone. They can make that choice. But it's kind of disgusting to see a family-friendly franchise like Marvel layered on top of these kinds of systems. It's predatory in a way that's designed to circumvent a busy or distracted parent. The parent's gonna see Iron Man shooting Hydra agents in hallway combat, and they will not understand all of the conditioning happening under the layer of franchise. If slot machine and resource systems like these are included in a game, that game should be rated for adults only. It should be included with apps that are actual gambling or sports betting apps. There's no way for a parent to know how deep these systems go. Oh, it's a game with that cute Captain America, and it's T for teen. Oh, it must be fine for my kid, because they don't say any poopy words and all of the boobies are tastefully covered. And that parent has no idea what that kid's about to get into. But no. You know, if we're worried about those kids, it's probably better to demonetize videos about Balatro on YouTube. It's almost like a thing that could sort of help. Maybe. So that's the way I see it. But maybe you think I have it totally wrong. Maybe you want more slot machine mechanics in games for kids, or maybe you think there is a danger to showing kids poker hands and you just hate Yahtzee. Yahtzee ruined your life. I'm being cheeky, but I do want some chatter on this. I do want some discussion, some conversation. Please drop some comments. I would not have made a video this long if I did not think this stuff mattered. And I really think folks should pay better attention to what's happening. So let's hear it. When does a game cross over from exciting random elements to predatory gambling mechanics? And if you can help me simplify this topic, it would really help when I chat with other parents. I don't want to have to show them this long of a video to get my point across. And I think it matters that we dig into this stuff a little bit deeper. So the folks who get to see the results of my testing and reviews for electronics, my editorials and my commentary on gaming are, of course, my incredible patrons. All of the folks over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list of names scrolling by on your screen right now. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, as these are the folks that are helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. None of this would be possible without their generosity and their support and contributions. The discussions we get into over on my Patreon and my private Discord directly help contribute to these kinds of videos and topics and conversations. They're basically the coolest tech pals in the universe, so I hope you'll check them out. I hope you'll consider joining the crew over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. Now, you know where you can find me across the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere, but these days, trying to spend a bit less. Now, you know where you can find me across the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere, but these days I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, a little on the Blueskis, a lot less so on the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Threads, and none at all on that dumpster fire site, and I will catch you all on the next video.